Do you guys know who Alan Dershowitz is? Professor of law at Harvard. He's been doing it like 20, 30 years. Every lawyer, not every lawyer, but the who's who of lawyers that have gone to Harvard have had to go through Alan Dershowitz. So he teaches the best of the best. Now, I understand that's subjective, but he teaches the best of the best law and constitutional law, and that's just who he is and what he does. He is a liberal to the core, and he said something very interesting, and I like listening to him because no one knows more about constitutional law than Alan Dershowitz, and he's intellectually honest because it doesn't matter if you're on the left or on the right, he's going to defend the law and your rights within the law, which is extremely important and doesn't seem to be very prevalent in these days. Him and a guy named Mark Garrigus, who represents a lot of famous people, but he also represents people in federal court. He handles civil, he handles criminal. So these guys, anytime you hear me talking about the law, that's where I'm getting my information from. So if you have a disagreement on the law, and you're disagreeing with me, I'm getting it from two of the best lawyers on the planet. And especially when it's a constitutional thing, no one knows more than Alan Dershowitz. No one. You may as well be talking to a Supreme Court justice because he's that knowledgeable on law, constitutional law specifically. So when I talk about things like a taint team, or I say, the president can do X, Y, Z, or they can't say this, or they can say it, but it won't hold in the court, it's because I've referenced two of the best attorneys on the planet. Well, American, I guess you could say. So Dershowitz said something, and I said it, I repeated it on one of my videos, and maybe I'll tag the video. I'm not sure that's important. But he said nothing that the Democrats are doing right now will hurt Donald Trump's ability to run for president. It will only hurt his appearance to voters. So this is more of a smear tactic than it is some kind of legal thing to stop him from running. And he literally said Donald Trump can run for president from a prison cell. Doesn't mean he'll win, but he can run for president from a prison cell. And he said that there's no constitutional barrier for him doing that. So all of the stuff that the Democrats are doing right now to Donald Trump, with these investigations in New York, the DOJ right now, and the raid and all that stuff, we keep hearing people say they're trying to stop Trump from running. And I've even heard legal experts on CNN, MSNBC. Actually, CNN's doing much better, but I still heard commentators on CNN say he won't be able to run. That is false. It is patently false. But I'm convinced if he ran as an independent, he would still get enough money to run for president. And I still think he could beat any candidate they put up against him. And I don't think Ron DeSantis would ever run against him, because I don't think it helps either party. Both will walk away scathed, and they don't want that. Because before all, they want to win. And it's only after you win that you can actually become an effective politician, even though they're both already been effective politicians. But successful, maybe that should be the word I use. The suit about the magistrate, Trump won, of course.
Judge Cannon ruled that Trump will get that request for the special master to decide which documents are covered under attorney-client privilege, and also, more surprisingly, which are covered by executive privilege. That Stop the Press's ruling yesterday has left the DOJ with some decisions it now has to make. First, and most essentially, what do we do now? Does the department appeal the ruling? A DOJ spokesperson said yesterday that the government is, quote, examining the opinion and will consider appropriate next steps in the ongoing litigation. There is also the issue of what is sometimes referred to as the Justice Department's 60 to 90-day rule. It's not an actual rule, but rather a department policy that prohibits investigative steps that could potentially influence an upcoming election. And of course, we are now 63 days from Election Day.
The judge asked them, hey, what's going on? You guys seized privileged documents. You can't do that. They say, yeah, but well, we have our I forget what they call it. It's another name for a taint team. Yeah, well, we have one. They're looking at the stuff now. But you already have it in your possession. That ruins your investigation. Because now you're saying, hey, trust me, I have everything, but I'm not looking at it. You can't do that. I mean, you can do that, but it ruins your case. It starts with an F. There's another name for the taint team, I think. I don't know the name for that team. But it's to prevent them from ruining their own investigation by taking documents that they have no right to. Medical stuff, which we know they have. Tax stuff, which we know they have. What else? Privilege stuff between attorney-client privilege stuff, which we know they took. You can't have that stuff. So when they gave that broad subpoena, I don't even know if it was a subpoena. When they gave that broad order that the judge signed off on to raid, it just said anything. And even within that, there's boundaries to the medical stuff, to the attorney-client privilege stuff, that the taint team would seize everything, let this objective group go through the stuff, and then say, okay, you can have this, you can't have this. Legally, you can't have it. And they didn't do that. They took it all, and then supposedly they have an objective team who's prosecution. It's not very objective. It's like when the police say, hey, we had an internal investigation and we deemed all things on the up and up. I bet you did. It's in your interest to make sure everything's on the up and up. That's what the feds are doing right now to Trump. Oh, don't worry, we have a team looking at that. Yeah, but the team's part of your army that's out to destroy this man. So it kind of defeats the purpose. So the proper taint team, which is now going to be the magistrate, is going to have to go through everything, and it's going to take a long time. The problem with that is Biden thought that this was going to ruin the midterm elections, which it really has nothing to do with the right. They're just trying to distract and make it all about Trump. He's been running against Trump, even though him and his press secretary lied and said that that he wasn't a political foe that they were going after.
Do you consider Donald Trump to be a political rival of President Biden?
I'm not going to speak to that from here.
Well, you talk about Trump all the time. So do you consider him to be...
I don't talk about Trump all the time.
Ultra MAGA, you guys were criticizing his handling of COVID last week. You've mentioned his January 6th response a couple days ago.
Republicans who are doing extremes. The president calls them ultra MAGA. They are part of the ultra MAGA wing. We are doing this very differently that I would argue than the last administration. His predecessor, Donald Trump, had an opportunity to be on the side of democracy, but instead he was on the side of the mob.
So can you say, based on all that, I didn't say anything about Mar-a-Lago. I'm just asking you if you consider the president to be...
I'm saying from here, I'm not going to comment on that.
Does the president still want to think that he would be very fortunate to run against Trump in 2024, like he has said before?
Again, I'm not going to comment on...
It's just a quote from the president. In the next election, I'd be very fortunate if I had that same man running against me. Does he still
All I
think
can
that?
tell you, Peter, is that the president intends to run in 2024.
Is there a concern here that if you guys don't say more, then these Republicans who are accusing this White House of weaponizing the Justice Department, weaponizing the FBI, that's going to become the public sentiment? If you guys don't say once and for all, we are not doing that.
First of all, we're just not going to comment.
But it's weird how things started leaking out of the stuff that the FBI took. And it's like, well, wait a minute. If the taint team is looking at this, your supposed taint team is looking at this stuff, it shouldn't be getting out because they're looking at it to make sure it doesn't get out. It's not legal. What they're doing is not legal. Somebody is breaking the law. Notice, anytime there are leaks, it always comes from the government. And it always goes toward the in favor of the left. Isn't that odd? That stuff is only leaked that hurts the right. Well, yeah, it's odd if you really truly believe that it's objective. So, going back to my original point, this is clearly a hit piece, a hit piece on an international scale to try and ruin the guy's ability to run, but from an acceptance standpoint, not from an ability standpoint, because he can run if he wants. And you'd have to show me differently in the Constitution, and it's not there. It's not there. I'm just curious to see where this goes, because after the midterms, it's really going to be ineffective because they have nothing to run on. But it is, I mean, it's fascinating watching them try to flip everything onto the right that they chose to do. They chose to stay closed. They chose to keep the kids at home while Donald Trump was fighting it. And fighting for them to open their businesses. They chose to just do the opposite. Anything he said, opposite. We'll do the opposite. And now they're putting it on him. Hey, he said defund the police. Like, what? They took full credit for the vaccine. You got to get it. It's mandatory. This is the truth serum. This is the greatest vaccine that there's ever been. If you say otherwise, we will ban you. Now they're saying, hey, that's Trump. Completely flip it. They want credit when it works for them, and they want to blame when it doesn't work for them, because they knew it was unpopular when they were doing it. They just didn't care. They literally lied to make sure everyone, or tried to make sure everyone got it. The President of the United States came out and said, I encourage all businesses to make this mandatory. The President of the United States said, I am mandating all federal employees get this.
The president is ordering nearly all federal workers and employees of contractors that do business with the federal government get vaccinated within 75 days, eliminating their option to be tested instead of getting shots. Employees who refuse could be punished, even fired.
If you want to work with the federal government and do business with us, get vaccinated.
Now he's saying, hey, that wasn't mine. That's on the other guy. His vice president said she wouldn't take the vaccine.
If the Trump administration approves a vaccine before or after the election, should Americans take it, and would you take it?
If the public health professionals, if Dr. Fauci, if the doctors tell us that we should take it, I'll be the first in line to take it. Absolutely. But if Donald Trump tells us that we should take it, I'm not taking it.
Everyone on the left will say, I'm not going to take that vaccine. And as soon as Biden got in office, everyone on the left is taking pictures of themselves getting jabbed and getting their little Band-Aid and getting on social media and on TV telling everybody, oh man, you got to get this. This is great. I feel like Popeye after he eats his spinach now that I got my jab. And guess what? We got a boost coming up. It's going to make you even stronger. You will not get this horrible, horrible disease if you get this vaccine. This is what they said.
You're not going to get COVID if you have these vaccinations. The vaccine can stop the spread of these diseases. No excuse for anyone being unvaccinated. This continues to be a pandemic of the unvaccinated.
This is really becoming a pandemic of the unvaccinated, and that means getting vaccinated, you can save yourself.
These vaccines are highly, highly effective. When people are vaccinated, they can feel safe that they are not going to get infected.
Fully vaccinated people are at a very, very low risk of getting COVID-19.
Our data from the CDC today suggests, that vaccinated people do not carry the virus, don't get sick, and that it's not just in the clinical trials, but it's also in real-world data.
What's your take on the next steps for COVID? What should the country be doing right now?
Getting vaccinated.
And for those who aren't?
They've got a problem. We have the capacity to control it. They should get vaccinated.
Let me emphasize that if you are vaccinated, you have a very high degree of protection, and therefore you do not need to wear a mask.
And now they're like, hey, that was Trump's thing. I ain't got nothing to do with that. Really? This wasn't a decade ago. This was yesterday. Fauci went out trying to take credit. Like, what do you people, how dumb do you think people are? You lied to our face for a year and a half, and now you're flipping it and lying in the other direction on the exact same topic. This is the worst politics I've ever seen. Ever. Bar none, nothing even comes close in this country. You promoted this thing. You ran for office on this thing. Now that all the polls show, whoa, you guys are in trouble. You're gonna turn your back on everything you've run on and you've celebrated for the last year and a half, going on 2 years now. You're going back on everything. How to get around this truck. You're going back on everything and say, hey, that's them, that's not us. It's your policy, stand on it. What are you doing? It's like Adam. It's like Adam when he tried to blame Eve. It's like, whoa, we both had a part in this. But in this case, Trump developed it, or had it developed. He didn't develop anything. He promoted it. They were against it. As soon as they got in office, they promoted it. And the right said, you know what? You guys didn't listen to Trump. We are no longer going to comply with this. Plus, there's more and more evidence coming out saying, hey, this is not what we thought it was. Which was the conservative point of view from the beginning anyway. And people were only good for it because their president at the time said, hey, this is what I want to do. So, okay, we'll follow until we get evidence of should we do this otherwise. So at the beginning of the pandemic, it all started, I probably shouldn't have used that word. I might edit that word out. I'll leave the fact that I edited the word out, but I think I'm going to edit that out. In the beginning of everything of 2020, while the left's rioting in the streets talking about race, they were ignoring all protocols. The same ones that they were calling you the enemy for not following. But in the very, very beginning, the right was doing the same thing because the right is naturally skeptic of anything that's going to go against our constitutional rights. I get that. That makes perfect sense. The problem is we had zero evidence to be skeptic about, so it didn't make sense. Because our guy was telling us, hey, follow this. And if you trust the guy, you'd say, okay, I'm going to give you some time to come up with a reason why I shouldn't, or why I should keep going with this. And that's where I was. So at first I'm like, all right, well, 2 weeks? I guess we got to do this 2 weeks. And most reasonable people were doing that. Anyone who was against it was strictly because going down party lines, or they were already anti whatever. Because it didn't make sense to be, no, I'm not going to do this. It also didn't make sense to go, yes, we're going to do this. Both sides were dumb. Both sides. And we live and we learn. Everyone should have learned something. There's going to be some people who say they're going to double down on their stupidity and say, I knew it all along. This is great and it's still great. Then there's going to be people who say, I knew it all along. This was bad and it's still bad. Then there's going to be people who say, okay, well, I've tried to follow the science. So I did give it a chance. And now I determined it wasn't worth it. Those are independents. The people cheering it on from the beginning were not independent. The people saying they can't do this, they weren't independent. It was very clear who the tribes were. But now the left, who promoted it, are saying, oh, that ain't on us, that's on that Trump guy. Blame him, he did it. It's fascinating. Because they're the ones, well, man, as soon as the FDA okays this thing, we're good. Oh, look, they've approved it. It's official, even though they approved it as an emergency remedy. They approved it, that's it, it's official. Now they're saying they didn't go through the proper protocols to approve it. Well, they did all that under you. While you were telling me to stick it in the kids, you're still telling me to stick it in the kids. So they're terrible at this whole reality thing. They're great at politics. They're terrible at reality. And that's where we are right now. Trump is Trump is against lawful behavior. They don't respect the rule of the law. All of a sudden, this is what the left is saying after bailing out criminals for 2 years or for a year and a half, depending on where you are. If you're in Washington or Oregon, anything goes. Unless you were part of the January 6th thing. Then hey, all gloves are off. We need to put these people away forever. Is there a way we can kill them? Can we do execution on this? No? Okay. Well, we'll just lock them up for 20 years, 15 years. Lock them up. Give them 15 years. That'll show them. That'll show them who's in power. It's the government. You know, I still had somebody comment on one of my videos the other day that police were killed on January 6th. They still believe that? If you go to Google right now and you search whether or not people were killed, it'll say yes, because the results that come up aren't going to be the real results. They're going to be what was said the day of and then the week of that event, or what happened, the inauguration or certification, whatever that was. Isn't that weird that they're leaving that misinformation up there for everyone to see, and it's the top search items on Google? You have to really search to find out, hey, no one died. Well, at least no one on the left died and no police died. But that hurts the narrative we've been pushing for the past year and a half. It's a flat out lie. And not only should, and I said this in the comment, wherever you got this from, they lied, or they were wrong, or they were misreporting based on somebody else's report. But these people are owed an apology. The people who think that police officers died on January 6th were lied to, and they are owed an apology. It's wrong. And Google needs to knock all those searches down, at least to page 2, and put the real stories up of what really were the results of that. Because we're in a world right now where they don't have to retract their stories. You can put out a lie and it's out there forever, that's fine. But there should be a retraction somewhere saying, yeah, we said that, but we were wrong. And they don't have to do that. So those stories are still out there of 5 police officers dying. 0 police died. 0. It was bad reporting or just flat out lies. People are still thinking that happened. And that's why that during that hearing, the congressional hearing on the January 6th committee hearing, they promoted that thought process. Now, they didn't outright say it because they know it's a lie, but they talked about violence and armed insurrection, and they alluded to the fact that people were killed. It didn't happen. I've talked to people who are like, what are you talking about? They killed police. No, they didn't. So when you hear somebody say armed insurrection and they were trying to overthrow the government, I said this before, with what? With flagpoles? How do you have an armed insurrection with not a shot fired that is capable of overthrowing the United States government? While saying, yeah, well, if you really wanted to do it, you would need more than guns, you would need F-15s. You see how there's a conflict there? It doesn't make sense. It's a clear lie. But people are so married to politics, to partisan politics, that they will, it's like a bulldog. The more you pull something, the further down they get, and they want to double down, and they want to lock. You ever play with a bulldog or even a pit bull with rope? If you leave it alone, they're good. As soon as you pick it up and do this, they pull back immediately. That's how people are with partisan politics. It's fascinating. And the right does the same thing, the right and the left. I should probably correct that. Democrats and Republicans do that. And there's a lot of times where they're both wrong. Both sides are wrong when you go extreme. And then the conversation becomes more of an argument than a disagreement. Because a disagreement can be, hey, honey, I think we should send our kid to this school. No, I think we should send our kid to this school. That's a disagreement. You can argue about that disagreement, but that's the difference. Because you both have an intent to do what's best for the child. And you think this school will be better, and they think this school will be better. Same thing is with policies. If somebody thinks, hey, I think we should spend more money on this, whatever the issue is, and you say, nah, I don't think money is the answer, I think whatever else is the answer, that's a legitimate debate or argument over a disagreement on on an outcome, and whether or not there should be an outcome. What the Democrats and Republicans are doing now is they're just arguing their point. They're not listening to the other side to determine if it makes sense. They just know this guy said it, so it must be bad. My side says it, so it's good. So now you have a good versus evil thing. And that's where you get the white supremacy on this side, and they want to compare you to Hitler, and they want to do all this stuff because if you're evil, then then I have to be right. I'm on the side of good. Misinformation, disinformation. Well, what's the opposite of that? Truth. So if I can convince people that they are liars, I win. The substance doesn't matter. The end goal doesn't even matter. It's about ad hominem. You're attacking the person, not what they're saying. So they're not listening to the other side. They could not do a steel man argument. They could not tell you, well, so-and-so would have you believe this, and they're coming from this place because they think that this is how I feel, and they think this is what I think. That would be a steel man argument. If you can't steel man the other person's side of any debate, you don't know what you're missing out on from an information standpoint. You don't know where they're coming from. You're only arguing your idea. And that's where we are in politics right now. They're not listening to learn. They're not listening to strengthen their own position. They're listening. They're not even listening. Actually, yeah, they're listening for a pause so they can tell you the truth. And that's the world we're in right now. It's not about who's right and who's wrong. It's not about this is the best idea to help such and such. It's about I'm right, you're wrong. I'm good, you're bad. And that's where we are in politics today. Is that good or is that bad? I don't know what side of the aisle you're on.